It is hump day, Wednesday. It is time for dinner, and we're going to do something based on the ingredients that we had in the house. Haven't been to the store in about 4 days, so we're going to kind of go a little morphed, partially made from scratch, partially what we had here in the house. We're doing enchiladas, Mexican rice. So the enchilada sauce, we don't have any in the house, so we're going to make some from scratch. The things we're going to cheat on are our tortillas for the enchiladas, are store-bought. I don't have masa and a tortilla press. And we're going to do kind of a pseudo-Mexican rice. The good thing with it is you can add in whatever ingredients you want, and as long as kind of the base flavors of tomato and onion are in there, you're going to be just fine. So we'll start things off with the enchilada sauce. Really easy to make, surprisingly. It's really just kind of vegetable broth, a little bit of tomato flavor, some garlic. So we're going to start by making kind of our parts to a roux. I have a medium-sized saucepan here. I'm going to get it heating right now. I'm not going to put any oil in there yet. I have it on at about medium. So in here I have about 3 tablespoons. And if you know me, I'm not big on, I'd put a little of this and a little of that. So I'm going to try and do this with some measurements, so if you want to try and replicate this at home, you can. So hopefully I'm good with explaining the measurements. So I put 3 tablespoons of flour into this little bowl. I'm going to do about the same and put about 3 tablespoons of olive oil into the pot. And that's how we'll make our roux. We have our fat and we have our flour. So now we're going to spice this up a little bit and give it the flavors we want. So we're going to start things off with chili powder, and I'm gonna go, let's call it a tablespoon. I usually just pour this stuff right in, but I'll actually use the measuring, and we'll see if we can do it all together here. So a tablespoon of chili powder. Whether you have dark chili powder or not, it's not a big deal. You just kind of want that chili powder flavor. We're making a mild sauce here tonight. Kids don't love it too spicy. You can always take just some of the adobo sauce from the Chipotle if you have it. Pour that in. You can take a Chipotle and stick blend it or put it in your blender. Add that to your sauce. You can put cayenne pepper in it. You can even put some like Cholula or something and just drizzle right in there if that's what you have. All right, so our biggest ingredients: flour, chili powder. Next up, we're going to take a little bit of cumin. Not a ton, because it's super high-powered, but you just want about a teaspoon of it. Actually, put just a little bit less than a teaspoon of cumin in here. And garlic powder, if you have garlic. Salt, you can use it, but just know that you're gonna have to cut back on the salt quite a bit. If you don't have garlic powder and can pulse or puree, or if you have a garlic paste, that could work. So for this, I think I'm not gonna go overly garlicky. We'll go with a half a teaspoon. See what that looks like. I think that's enough. Half teaspoon works. Dried oregano, we're gonna put some of that in there too. Why? Because it is fantastic. Just the aroma alone brings out a lot. I'm gonna do about the same as the garlic powder. Put a half teaspoon into that bowl. This is definitely weird putting measuring spoons in anything. Something else a little weird. I'm going to take a little bit of cinnamon. This is a grinder. You can have regular cinnamon if you want, or if you have a stick, you can always shred it on there. But I'm going to put just a hint of cinnamon in here. More for the aromatic than anything, and just to kind of give that little hint of spice. I'm actually going to go just a little more. But I mean, we're talking a pinch here. Salt. Depending on what wet ingredient you use, I'm going to use vegetarian stock that I made. If you have a vegetarian broth, that's going to be a little saltier, so you don't want to put as much salt. But I'm going to go with that same, I'm going to go 1/4 teaspoon of salt, because I can always add it at the end. Why not, right? For me, I would just normally take a pinch and throw it in and see where I am. But I'm trying this out tonight. All right, so that's it for the dry. So here's our dry ingredients. Here is our olive oil. We're going to go 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Let's try this with that girl on TikTok. You put 3 tablespoons of olive oil. 1, 2, 3. something like that. I don't know how that works. So there is that. Let's see here. Joel wants an overhead shot, so we're going to come to that right now. So we have our pan with olive oil. It's heating up. We have the spice mixture right here. I'm going to bring this up to high just to get our oil hot. We want to make sure that it's sizzling. We don't want the flour really to soak it up, but we do want to toast this just for maybe a minute or so to get it aromatic before we add our other liquid. So here we go. It is my trusty, handy-dandy, flat-edged wooden spoon that's going to go in here. I'm going to test this by just taking a little pinch of the flour, drizzling it in, and I do see a little sizzle, so the whole thing is going to go right in, and I'm going to stir and stir and stir. You can use a whisk, you can use the spoon, but I am trying to, I'm going to bring this down to about medium here. I'm trying to incorporate all these spices and get them slightly toasted. So here's what it looks like now. Let's turn this light on. It is on. There we go. So we are making sure there's no lumps or clumps in here. I like it. Next thing we're going to do is take a little bit of tomato paste. So I'm going to use just a couple of tablespoons of this. I'm going to use some more of it in the Mexican rice. You can use tomato paste, tomato sauce, either one's fine. So sticking with that whole measurement, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. 1 and 2. I'm making a big old mess today, splattering tomato all over the place. It's awesome. So that's going to come in here. I'm going to let that toast with the spices now for maybe another minute. I'm really just trying to incorporate this tomato flavor now in with the spices. I want to be careful not to let the spices burn. Smells great. And sticking with the measuring idea, here's my veggie stock. And I'm going to put 2 cups of veggie stock. I hope this is the right amount, but we'll see. So it's really simple enchilada sauce. It's done in 6-7 minutes if you hurry. And it should be super flavorful. All right, so now I'm going to bring the heat back up to high to get this up to temp. I'm being careful to incorporate everything. I'm trying not to get anything too clumpy. At the very end, I'm going to add a little bit of acid into it and some salt as well. May add pepper too, based on the flavor profile. But I mean, the main parts of the enchilada sauce really are the chili powder, the garlic, and I mean, the cumin's kind of optional. If it's not there, it might taste a little different than what you would normally find. The tomato is optional if you really want to go no tomato. If you want to go no flour, that's fine. You can do cornstarch. I'm gonna bring this up. Hi, Denise. I'm here. All right. So here I am. So now I'm just going to continue to stir this. I do not want any lumps in this sauce. This needs to be a smooth sauce. The only things I should see are little tiny pieces of oregano at the end, and then once we add the black pepper. So enchilada sauce is going. It's probably going to take about 5 minutes to meld together, and then it'll be ready, and that's it. I have an oven preheating, so I'm going to let this sit here for a little bit, and then I'm going to work on part 2, which is going to be the filling for the enchiladas. I'm going to do some of them that are cheese, so we can do a vegetarian one, and then I'm going to do some of them with what we had in the house. I have a ground beef and onion mixture I'm going to put together. So when doing the ground beef for this, I'm going to take this and move it back. When doing the ground beef for this, I like to do it in a cast iron pan. The other thing I really like is to have the ground beef frozen or to the point of almost frozen, flat and frozen. And the reason I say that is because I don't want to overcook it. I still want to get a good browning on it, but I don't want it to be dead. So here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to bring this down to the cutting board. We're going to take an onion. I'm going to use part of this for our ground beef mixture and part of it for our Mexican rice. For both of them, I don't want giant chunks of onion. So just like every other time, I intentionally peel just a little bit off to help me start it. And then when I cut the onion in half, I try and find where I did that peel so that the corner I get is already started for me. So I'm going to peel that onion off. I'm going to go with more of a fine dice here tonight. Lori's asking about a vegan themed night. I guess we can try that. All right, we'll do a vegan themed night one night. I don't know that I have a huge carnivore in the house, and she's not going to be that thrilled with me, but I'll make it taste good. So we'll do that. I have a ton of vegan friends, and we can do it. All right, so our super fine dice on the onion. Weigh the onion in half. We're going to go through this way. Then we're going to go this way. So here we go. I'm going to go straight down. I'm going to go nice and slow so you can see the start. All I'm trying to do is steady it. The other way to do it is to come along this way. But I like going along this way. I'm not going all the way through the onion. I'm trying to make layers. So you can see I've made some layers here. Next part, here's the tail still on. I'm going to go down the onion this way. I'm going to turn these down just a little bit. And this is going to determine the width of the pieces. So now I have layer 2. So it's all these little pieces, and now I'm going to come along and finally finish it. So there's how fine our dice is. I mean, I don't have to do much of anything else. Sometimes you'll run into a layer that's being a little stubborn on you. All you have to do is flip the onion over onto its back and get those little pieces. It's not a problem. So I'm going to continue to go through. And now I'm going to finish with these little sides. And instead of throwing a whole bunch of onion away, now we just have a little tiny end. These onions are going to go right into my cast iron. I'm going to throw just a little bit, and I mean just a little bit of olive oil in there, because I'm going to have plenty of fat drippings coming from the meat. So here we go. Onions go in. We should hear an immediate sizzle, which is what we're looking for. It means the pan's nice and hot. I'm going to give my enchilada sauce a stir. I'm actually going to take the heat off this enchilada sauce because it is done. So while these onions are going, I'm going to get another flat-edged wooden spoon. I'm going to brown these maybe a little bit more than translucent. Really get more of a saute on them. And then while keeping this on high heat, and try and bring that temp up, I have that ground beef that I have kind of par frozen here so that it's not going to overcook. So this is some of the, so this isn't just like regular ground beef from the grocery store. This is that mixture I've used for burgers of ribeye, strip loin, brisket. And it's going to have a lot of fat that burns off. So we're going to probably have a considerable amount that we're going to be pouring off of this. Nice thing with a cast iron, it does distribute heat pretty nicely, but I can pull it just a little bit forward, leave the onions on this side of the pan, and then have the highest heat back here where it's going to work that meat. Okay, while that's sitting in there, here's our enchilada sauce. I am going to add a little bit of apple cider vinegar, probably what I'd consider a teaspoon of it, just for some acid. And then some pepper. And some salt. And if it tastes good, then we're done. And that sauce is ready to go. Let's find out. We're trying to incorporate it in. Because I use dark chili powder, this might look a little darker than that store-bought sauce you're used to seeing. And add just a little bit more vinegar because I want a little more acid. And a little bit more salt because that vegetable stock that we used was really undersalted. While that's happening, I'm going to multitask and turn over the meat. Try not to stir it too much because I'm really trying to get it brown. I'll break it up here in a minute. That is fantastic. That's probably better than anything you'll ever buy in a store, and I'd call it, this is restaurant quality, the sauce. This is really nice. I'm excited to hear feedback on others that try this with the little measurements. All right, so I'm gonna leave this onion off to the side. We're gonna use that for the rice. I'm gonna clean off this cutting board, and then we'll work on this meat. We'll put together the enchiladas. We will make the rice, and then I will sign off for about half an hour. We'll let everything cook and then come back to finish it off. All right, so we have the meat. At this point, I'm going to break it up. Any of the brown pieces, I'm going to bring back. Bring this up a little bit. Any of the really brown pieces I'm going to bring back here in and mix them with the onions. So I'm trying not to completely kill it. Because remember, it's getting brown here and then it's going in the oven. So even if you see pink, you see red, that's all fine. It will cook. Flip it again here. I've not seasoned anything in here yet. Some of the seasoning is going to come from the sauce. I do want to salt and pepper this mixture, but I'm really not going to do much of anything else. Depending on the flavor, once I taste it, I may take a little bit of the sauce and pour it into the mixture, but most likely not. So here's this. So at this point, I'm going to take my kosher salt. And black pepper. I don't want to put this in too early because the pepper can burn, because I do have this at extremely high heat right now. So I'm going to sprinkle it on the mixture here on the side. I'm not even going to put it on the part under the big burner. I'm going to bring you over so you can see what we're looking like. So here's the little bit that's not there yet. This is the whole side of onions and beef that is done. Here's our sauce in the back. Looks really good. And I think I am good with where we are. I'm going to finish browning this one side, and then our mixture will be done. I'm going to grab a bowl to put this into rather than let it continue to sit in this hot pan. The other thing with using the spoon to scoop it out is I can leave a lot of the grease that I might not want down in the pan. As far as this dinner tonight, you could absolutely make this vegan if you used vegan cheese. And you don't have to use a meat mixture. We are going to tonight make some cheese enchiladas and some beef enchiladas. And then the last little secret that I'm going to use, and it's completely optional, here in this meat mixture, is a little bit of white wine. It's going to help deglaze that pan, and it's going to help build even more flavor into this meat mixture that we have. So I am good with all of this meat. It's all going to come out. I'm going to scrape as much as I can out now. And I'm going to try and show you what this looks like when we deglaze, especially in a cast iron pan. I'm going to keep the flat-edged wooden spoon here. I want this nice and hot. And I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to try and do this with one hand and show you at the same time. So here we go. Putting a considerable amount of white wine in. It's going to reduce. I'm going to use this spoon and just scrape along the pan, and all of those little brown bits are coming up. At the same time, the wine is reducing considerably, and so we're going to have a very small amount of liquid that's going to go into this pan. I want to also kind of splash up onto the sides. See if I can get a good grip here. I'm going to splash up onto the sides, get any of these little bits off. If you use too small an amount of liquid, it's going to evaporate really quickly, and you won't have the time to really clean the pan off well. There's a lot of flavor in here, though. You can see right there all of these little brown bits. It'll be fantastic. All right, so our brown bits, this is called deglazing the pan. As soon as I'm happy with the consistency of the wine, we burned off all the alcohol. I'm going to add this to our meat mixture. I think we're there. So I'm going to continue to scrape. We're going to pour that right in. And now I have a much easier time cleaning the pan also. So at this point, I'm going to turn this down to low. I'm going to bring our sauce forward. We're going to have it at low. And we're going to build our enchiladas. Take 1 second here. Yeah, Lori just mentioned this is my go-to cooking wine. I like it because it's not expensive. It sits really well. It's a screw cap, which is great for keeping it. It doesn't get a ton of oxygen, and it's just a little bit sweet. So it works really well, and it tastes good. I mean, it's got to taste good. If you have a wine that doesn't taste good, what's the point of cooking with it, especially when you're reducing? So this is going to be the mixture that goes inside of these enchiladas. Give it a quick taste. And it tastes fantastic.
It's really good. I don't know why I'm setting it off to the side. I'm about to make enchiladas, so let's do it. So we want to have a good workstation here. I want to have plenty of room and know that this will get just a little bit messy. I'm going to take one more drink because I won't have a chance for the next little bit. I'm going to get a Pyrex dish. I have 2 of them for this. I'm going to use one that's going to stay completely vegetarian for my vegetarian daughter, and then this one where I'll have some beef and some cheese in it. Turn the heat off now. I see a little bit of steam coming off our enchilada sauce. I like it, so I'm going to pour a little bit of enchilada sauce into the bottom of these Pyrex dishes. We want to do that so that the enchiladas don't stick to the bottom. So let me see if I can bring you all the way down to this. So you can see what we've done there. It's not going to stay there. So what I'm going to do is move the enchilada dishes over a little bit. So our enchilada dishes are here. We have some sauce in there. I'm going to spread it around on the bottom. The other thing I like about this this more homemade sauce has way less sodium than the canned ones. They use sodium as a preservative in those, and it can get way up there. I have kept corn tortillas in a wet paper towel. You can actually steam them a little bit by microwaving them in the wet paper towel. I have not. They will break a little bit, and for this, I'm okay with it, because really it's just going to be a big gloopy mess at the end. But you want to make sure that you can at least get to that. If you can get to there without breaking, then they're acceptable to use for this. I'm going to grab my cheese. So we have, looks like a couple of different ones. This Mexican 4 cheese, which is Monterey Jack and cheddar, asadero and queso quesadilla, and then just this cheddar jack. I'm going to put them both together into a bowl. So here they go right into a bowl. I'm assuming I'm going to be making about 10 enchiladas. So this is probably the right amount for 10, the contents of these 2 bags. 1 full bag of 8 ounces is probably appropriate, or these 2 half. Remember, I want enough to put inside as well as to top it. So here's our cheese. It's going to go set right here on the side. I have the tortillas. The last thing I'm going to do is get a little plate. And what I want to do with this plate is take a little bit of this sauce and put it onto the plate. And I'm going to end up taking these tortillas and dipping them into the sauce to help us get started and make them a little more pliable. So tortilla is going to go down into the sauce, other side down into the sauce. It doesn't have to be perfect, not by no means perfect science. Because I'm going to try and keep this one vegetarian, I'm going to do just the cheese ones first that are going to go into the small Pyrex. So some cheese is going to go in here. I'm going to take the 2 edges, I'm going to bring them over, and I'm going to, at this point, have no problem if it breaks, and set it down into the Pyrex. So I'll end up stacking that together here. That one broke pretty badly, but that's okay. Oop. I'm gonna flip this over. Cheese here. This is a messy proposition, making enchiladas, and that's okay. two corners, we're bringing them over. And then I'm going to fold it into this pan. I'm going to try and fit 3 cheese enchiladas. I'm going to add a little bit more sauce here. Here's our third one. Once again, I'm not that concerned with the tortilla breaking because I'm going to be setting them next to each other and they will bake together. The one thing I want to try and do is make sure that they separate a little bit. So there's 2 and there's 1. At this point, I'm going to take some of the sauce, pour it right over the top. And then I will be generous and cover the whole thing with cheese. So there are our cheese enchiladas. So that'll set over here onto the side. Now onto the beef ones. For this, I'm going to grab a spoon. A little bit easier. I'm still putting plenty of cheese in there, and then I'm going to spoon this meat mixture right in. Not being shy, it's all going right here. And then I'm going to, same method, bring it in, and then flip it over in the pan. More sauce. I'm trying to make sure I have enough sauce at the end to pour over the top, so I may get a little stingy with the sauce here. A little bit of cheese, generous portion of the meat mixture. Center it. And even if you have a broken tortilla, no problem. Fold it and flip it. So I should be done with this here in a couple of minutes. These will go in the oven and then we'll start the rice. So meat mixture. The great part about this, you can use any meat mixture. You can, if you have pork, you can use shredded pork. If you have leftover pulled pork, you can even make like a barbecue themed enchilada, and that's no problem. These are really easy, and they go with so many different flavors. Ground turkey works fine in these. You can do a tomatillo sauce, a green sauce instead, if you like, or if hatch chilies work really well during the hatch chili season. If you find jars of that stuff, you can use that too. The main flavors you want to have are the garlic and some sort of a chili powder or some sort of chili in there. These are quite brittle. Not really thrilled with it. If you don't have a ton of cheddar jack or Mexican combo, you can do Italian enchiladas and do a tomato sauce in there and mozzarella cheese, because that corn tortilla could almost act like a polenta flavor, and you can kind of go in that direction if you think it's appropriate. All right, so there we are. That's another full dish. I am actually going to be running out of cheese here, which is not fun. So I don't have a ton in here. I'm going to pour the sauce over the top. Put the remaining cheese I have here on part of it. I may take just a little bit from the other one. And then I'm going to see what other cheese I have in the refrigerator to finish this off. Well, look at that. All right. We're going to be just fine. Cheese is going on. I'm gonna replenish this little guy a little bit. And now it's time to put them in the oven. So they are in at 350. We're gonna keep them in there about half an hour. And then they'll be ready. So that's that part. Now it's the rice. That's gonna take about the same amount of time. So for this Mexican rice, all sorts of options. You can use corn, peas, carrots, onions, green onions, cilantro. There's all sorts of ways to go about it. For tonight, we're gonna go really, really simple. And all I'm going to do is do onion, tomato, and rice. So here's our rice, here's our onion, and we're gonna use this tomato paste we already used. So it's a great way to use the ingredients that we have and are using already and not waste. Just like the other onion, I'm going to fine dice it. One thing while this enchilada is in the oven, I'm going to do is just kind of keep an eye on it. And I don't want the cheese to get too brown right away. So I may end up covering it with foil if I feel like the cheese is browning. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that I get all that cheese inside melted. All right, so we're going to turn this guy on to high. Add a little bit of olive oil to the bottom of the pan. This we're gonna do a little different than the rice the other night. Let's see, so Tina is saying, oh wow, all right. Haggis with a whiskey cream sauce. I'm not gonna be doing haggis, I'm sorry about that. Not one of our family favorites. Although I've had it quite a few times. All right, so here is one of my favorite Scottish groups is Bad Haggis. So olive oil is there. We're gonna dump these onions right in. So we're gonna do a lot of onions in this one because I'm not gonna add the peas and carrots and all that other stuff. I'm gonna keep it pretty simple. I'm going to, I don't have, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna quickly wash my favorite little spoon. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use some of this enchilada sauce in the rice. That's gonna be really good. So I'm gonna use the same spoon, stir up these onions. Because we have tomatoes, we have vegetable stock, and we have all sorts of neat spices. So this sounds great. Sometimes you just wing it. All right, so the onions are going. I want to turn this down to medium. I don't want to get these burned too badly. I want to start to get these that translucent color. I'm going to measure out rice. I'm going to give this guy a quick rinse and then a big dry. I'm going to put a cup of rice, 2 cups of liquid in there. So the one difference from the white rice I made the other night, when I did that, I just went really simple and it was rice, water, and salt. So I'm adding all these other things. I'm actually going to toast the rice for a little bit. It's going to give an interesting texture to it as it cooks. It's going to help develop even more flavor into these other ingredients, the tomato and the onion and the veggie stock that I use. So it should be pretty good. So this onion's still going, probably needs another minute before we get to translucent. Pulling my veg stock back out of the fridge. So at this point, I'm going to give it one more stir. I like where it is. We're going to add in 1 cup of rice. This is serves about four to five people. Just depends how much rice they like, I guess. So here goes a cup of rice into the pot. That's going to sit in this pot, and I'm probably going to turn it back up a little higher, and I'm going to toast this rice for a couple of minutes. So this is a lot like you would make pilaf. You want to toast it in some fat, like olive oil, butter, and then you'll continue to cook it with a lot of butter in a pilaf. Or in this case, we're going to use some of the natural fats from that veg stock. So we'll want to pay attention to this because I do have it on high heat. If I let it sit too long, it'll just burn the bottom of the pan. So I want to keep it moving. The other thing I'm going to do is add in some of this sauce that's on the bottom of this pan. And then I'll probably add in a little bit of tomato paste. Turn the heat down. I'm going to grab one new spoon here. Tomato paste, I'm going to grab 1 spoonful of it and it's going to go right in. If you have tomato sauce, that works just fine. But that tomato is what gives it that orangey color when you see that finished product. Okay, I'm going to turn it down even more. I'm going to now add in some stock. 1 and 2. At this point, it goes all the way back up, screaming at high. I'm going to try and get all the little bits and pieces off of the side of the pan. And then I'm going to use the same spoon that I did the tomato paste and scrape off my wooden spoon. Every once in a while you find one of these little bits of rice that wants to stick up there and never get cooked. So I'll give it a stir with the tomato spoon. I'm going to add in a touch of salt. The second I see this thing start to get to boiling, I'll cover it and put it on super low heat. If I wanted to add in carrots or peas or corn at this point, I could. I may add in some fresh tomatoes at the very end, but that would be after it's done cooking. I don't want to cook the tomatoes down anymore, especially since I have this tomato paste in here now. So we're going to add in a little bit of salt. And we should have plenty of flavor from this enchilada sauce. We have a little more tomato, we have more onion. So I think it's going to be a pretty tasty rice. I may just finish it up with some parsley at the end as well, just for some color and freshness. So while this is getting up to boiling, I'm going to clean my workstation. I'll show you what we look like, and then we'll join you in a little bit. So give me a second. Let's see, sounds low fat, cooking margarita. All right, so I don't have a cooking margarita. I went with a, we're staying in North America. This is a Canadian whiskey tonight, not a rye like the other night. It's like Special Reserve Crown Royal or something like that. It's quite good though. And as far as Mike talking about the low fat, the enchiladas are not low fat, but this rice isn't. It's not fatty at all. I mean, the only fat that we've added is that little bit of olive oil at the very beginning. Everything else is totally fine. I didn't add any extra butter or anything like that. So let's take a look. Here we are. This is what our rice looks like. It's the Mexican rice. It's starting to bubble, and down here are our enchiladas that are going. So those have a little bit longer, probably 20 minutes or so. The rice should be done in 20 minutes, and we'll see you in 20 minutes, and that's when we'll finish things up. Have a good one.